walking down the street.
Let's start it over.
Well, so it like starts immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Give us a little signal.
Countdown.
okay, I'm gonna start it right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we
Okay.
Walking down the street, we get the funniest looks from everyone's leaving.
I'm sorry.
I think we just do it without the music.
Okay,
Like
let's
I
do it
feel
without
like
the music.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Angie Scott and Barb Carey.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I'm Angie Scott. If you're just finding us, we are so glad you're here. And if you're a regular listener, thanks for coming back. We've been doing a lot of work the last couple weeks putting together a media kit for the show and digging into some of our statistics and demographics. One thing we discovered is that 85% of the people who listen to the show are subscribers, and that's pretty awesome. Thank you everyone who has hit the subscribe button. It's a huge help because it moves us up in the ranks and it helps more people discover the show. And that means you never miss a show when we release bonus content like we're doing today. You're not going to want to miss out on stuff like that. We really appreciate it. Thanks also for taking the time to leave us reviews. Periodically, we'll be sharing reviews on the show, and here's one from Any Fish Will Do that was about the episode we did with Chasten Whitfield, which was episode 79. They said, "Empowering the next generation. This is my first podcast I listen to from here, and I guarantee it won't be my last. What a great segment. This girl's making waves where no one has gone before. She's tapping into an area where most people don't want to go, people with disabilities, and I love it. My son has autism, so when that mom cried, I could relate. It's the small things we celebrate as parents with kids with disabilities. Love her ideas and where she is taking this. Thanks to all her sponsors who made this possible. I'll be sure to buy and promote your products." Thank you so much for sharing that with us and supporting anglers who are out there like Chasten, who are making a difference. So if you've been following us on social media, you've got to see some of the adventures I had tagging along on the Florida portion of the Rip and Hoppers Redfish Roadie road trip. Today's episode is a candid conversation we had while rolling in the minivan on our way to New Orleans. The timing's funny because, as it turns out, it was a perfect follow-up from last week's episode that Barb hosted, which was called Confessions of a Mansplainer. If you missed that, go back and check it out. We got a ton of great feedback from that show, and the feedback we received was overwhelmingly positive. People really appreciated Lubaka sharing his story and message. I think all of us as anglers, male or female, need to be more self-aware when we're teaching others to not make assumptions or be too overbearing. As one of our guests on this episode, Jen Ripple, likes to say, it's fishing, and fishing's supposed to be fun. And I want to reiterate that none of us are trying to be negative or cut any one particular person or group of people down. We really appreciate all the instructors out there who are helping to introduce the sport of fishing to more people. We all have the same goals, whether it be conventional fishing or fly fishing. We believe in the R3 initiative, which is recruitment, retention, and reactivation. That's why these types of conversations need to be had. We know that everyone out there has really big hearts and the best of intentions, but it never hurts to take a step back and become more self-aware like Lubaka did. When we're so passionate about something like fishing or even sports like shooting or archery, we tend to have what's called the curse of knowledge. We forget that not everyone knows all the terminology. We start talking over their heads, and that can cause a less experienced angler to put up a wall. I'm telling this to myself just as much as anyone else. So we hope you enjoy this conversation about observations we had from the Redfish Roadie road trip. It was super fun. Jen Ripple from Dunn Magazine and Heather Hodson from United Women on the Fly. Rip and Hopper's Adventure. Enjoy.
Walking down the street, we get the funniest looks from everyone we meet. Hey, we're the anglers. People say we monkey around, but we're too busy fishing to put anybody down. We're just trying to be friendly. Come and watch us teach and play. We're the young generation, and we've got something to say.
Woo! Live from the Redfish Roadie Rippin' Hoppers Adventure 2019, the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast is on the road, and we're headed to New Orleans right now.
Yeah!
So 2,200 miles, 5 states, 4 events, rolling in the minivan.
That's right. That's right. Rolling in the minivan. We're rolling in the minivan.
You can tell we're getting a little delirious. No, but it's been a super, super fun trip so far, and I feel so blessed to have the opportunity to be along for a good portion of this trip.
Well, honestly, we're the blessed ones, Angie, because you have made it so much fun, and it's been awesome to have you.
Well, thank you so much. We started out, y'all picked me up in Nashville.
That's right.
And we drove straight from there to Homosassa, which was, how long? That was,
like 13 hours did it end up being?
Something like that, yeah. So, kicked it off right. Rolled in at, I don't know, it was after midnight.
1 a.m.
1 a.m.
I missed Tuesday. So the problem with driving that long is that you get a little delirious. So I missed 2 exits. And with Florida, there's so many swamps that the next exit is until 30 miles. So it definitely took us a little bit longer than it should have because I was getting tired.
Understandably.
Yes.
But we had a super awesome place to stay in Homosassa. It was amazing. We had a cabana boy.
An adopted mother for you?
Oh, yeah. I have an adopted mom now, which is super cool. And so I'm excited about that. But yeah, everybody's been so amazing. We've had community casting events along the way. So we did one. The first one was in Homosassa. And then there was one in the Everglades. And then Stuart, Florida. And I got to cast a little bit in Homosassa, and that was cool. And then we went out with a guide named Kyle. Katie's in the car with us, too. Katie and I went out with Kyle, and I caught my first fish on the fly.
Whoops.
Yeah! And it was a Jack Crevalle, so it fought pretty hard.
Heck yeah.
And it was on Katie's rod.
Yep, my favorite kind of boat, yep.
So yeah, but, we've been talking a little bit along the way about, I'm a conventional angler, and, we should just all get along with each other.
Agreed.
So, the other day in Stuart, was it Stuart that we went out with Charlie?
Everglades City.
Stuart.
Oh, it was Everglades City. Yeah, we went out with Charlie, and so Jen was in the back and Heather was in the front, and they were both doing their fly casting thing, and I was in the middle with my little spinning rod and reel, and it kind of worked out great because all 3 of us were able to fish. So yeah, what are your thoughts on why? Well, Jen, you have a story about the history behind why fly fishing isn't allowed in the bass tournaments.
Yeah. So rumor has it that back in the day, there was a bass tournament, and there was an angler who was a fly angler, but he also had advanced degrees, and he studied bass in particular, and so he knew the habitat for bass. He knew where they eat and what they, where they live and all of that, and he won the tournament. But because he used a fly, they thought it was because he used a fly, and so that's why flies are not allowed in bass tournaments.
I think that should change. I mean, if somebody wants to fly fish, why not?
I think we're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
We saw your lure out there, and there's no way that a fly can compete with what they have on the market today. So.
Well, and not only that, but if you want to educate yourself prior to a tournament, so be it, right? If you are educated, everyone can educate themselves on a fishery and how to fish a certain species or where you're going. I mean, we all try to research a lake that we're going to go to, or a river, or what kind of flies or lures do you need to go saltwater fishing. So educating yourself is a good thing.
Yeah. We all have equal opportunity to educate ourselves if we want to do so.
Yeah.
So I had some observations kind of being from the outside of the fly fishing world, and I think, that this kind of goes across the board, but I'm not going to say any specifics or anything like that, but I noticed, some of these older club guys that came at some of the events to help out, there was a little bit of an intimidation factor, I felt,
unfortunately, that still exists, right?
Yeah, so fly angling is a little intimidating to an outsider as it is, but then when you've got somebody who is, acting like they're an expert and trying to teach you, but maybe not in the best, especially for a beginner, maybe not using the best methods. I don't know.
Well, and the elitism that was in our sport, and we think, is changing, it was kind of obvious that at times it was still there. And that's a shame, because I don't think that that's what fly fishing should be about. It's no longer that elitism sport where, only the rich can buy a beat and fish, and it shouldn't be, because it's fun and it's easy, and it's a lot easier than I think than throwing a bait caster. I mean, I've never done it, but that looks extremely difficult.
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of the people that came out, I think that they had good intentions. I think though that they were not aware of themselves. Meaning, Jen and I, we travel around the country and the world, and we teach, anglers how to fish. So we're very experienced at teaching new anglers. We know how to make people feel comfortable. We're not casting experts, but we're experts at getting anglers involved, having fun, and not feeling intimidated. So we know how to approach new anglers and how to be nice and how to critique in a way that doesn't make you feel like you want to crawl up in a hole and never do it again. We want to encourage people to continue it and only get better and better with every pick up and lay down. And I think sometimes the people that have been around fly fishing for a long time, they forget that. And they, think that they might be an experts in certain aspects, but they're not as thoughtful or mindful as getting new people involved and making them feel welcome to the sport.
Yeah, you make a good point, because we're doing the Bronze Challenge, and that's a beginning level casting challenge. And so the people that are coming out are not taking their casting instructor test, which is a completely different thing offered by Fly Fishers International. And so I think that, I think you're right, it is with the best of intentions, but they forget that these are new anglers, and that the sole purpose of this is for them to practice their casting and get more involved in the sport that we love.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I love how you make a point to make it fun. It doesn't have to be the super technical, stand this way, don't shift your weight, that whole thing. I know, Katie, we went out one day with a guide who was a little kind of over the top.
I would say pushy is the word, but, as pushy as he was, I asked for it, and I learned something from every caster. So I needed to hear the corrections he was making, but he was just, a lesser woman wouldn't have been able to put up with it, put it that way.
I didn't. I chose not to touch a fly rod.
And I knew that. I knew that. Once he started coaching me, I thought, oh boy, Angie's not going to want to try this at all.
Yeah, and that's too bad.
It was, yeah.
And, we were with Michael Morey and Stewart, and he said something that kind of hit home to both Jen and I. It's like, he's not going to change the world overnight. He's not going to correct your cast. You know, he might be able to give you a couple pointers, but he can't completely change somebody. And I like that. I like that approach. You know, if not for me, you know, both Jen and I are good anglers and decent casters, and I was screwing up. And I've been casting a long time. I teach casting, and I'm still screwing up. And I'm human. And this specific type of casting I don't always do all the time. So I think looking from within, knowing that as a decent angler, that you still, there's so much room for improvement, and that I really value the fact that Michael didn't try to change me completely, but when I asked for help, he was willing to give that, and was in a really kind and great way that made me feel comfortable.
Well, and too, you know, I know for me, like, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on my cast. You know, not all the time, obviously, but I have a pretty good handle on a double haul, and I can cast a far distance pretty accurately. And, you know, when someone critiques my cast, if they give me too many things to think about, my cast just goes to pot, right? Because I feel like the more I think about my cast, the worse it gets. It's got to be a feel kind of thing. And so when an instructor, kind of like what maybe you experienced, Katie, was, you know, do this and this and this and this and this and this, and you're thinking about 10 things, and you're like, oh my God, was there anything in my cast that was good? Yeah. Whereas the difference was Michael was like, well, you know, if you just try this little thing right now, this is something that, and he even said, this is for, I'll teach you two things. One is for the now, and one is for later on. And I thought that was really good. This will take you 5 minutes, and it'll change your cast right now. But in the future, think of this. You know,
it was great.
What's also important is I think I have learned something from everyone who's ever coached me. I've, you know, something they have said resonated that no one else had gotten through to me yet, and that's, I was fortunate enough to pass my bronze.
Yay!
Congratulations. And I have to thank people from Paul Tahara in the Florida Keys to Damon Blankenship and Tony Weaver in Alaska, you know, and every coach I've had in between, even Forks, Washington, west coast of Jeff Brazda's lodge with Alyssa Halls, you know, the guides, Alyssa, the guides there, every guide that I've ever been with, every instructor I've ever been with, they've all made me a better caster, still up to this point.
Well, and that's your attitude, right? It's the way that you go into it as well, you know, and that helps. But it also helps when you feel like you're invited into that space instead of like an intrusion.
Yeah, like some of my terms are, hey, let's dance, right? Let's move, let's shake our bodies, you know, and by doing that can increase your casting stroke, you know, and so you're utilizing fun ways and fun terms and fun ideas in order to make you a better caster. And a lot of times anglers are very stiff, right? Really hardcore. They're just like when they're trying to cast. And I'm like, let's just chill this out. Let's Bob Marley this, you know? We all know what you know, so.
I often find my shoulders like this when I'm casting, you know, and I have to stop. Okay, drop your shoulders and relax a minute.
Yeah, right? And I think for me personally, it's verbiage like that and ways that I teach that I think it puts people at ease. And it makes them a better caster. So when someone that is an elitist or feels that they're, you know, an amazing instructor, and they look down on me for the way that I instruct because of the choices of words that I use, I don't appreciate that. I feel that, you know, I've learned from just like Katie, you know, I have some of the most amazing mentors that there is all over the world, you know. And I've learned a little bit from every single one of them, but I'm making it my own as I instruct. And I think that when people look at both Jen and I and the way that we instruct, they might think that it's not as prim and proper or as like, the right terminology and all this stuff. But we're at the end of the day, it's fishing and it's supposed to be fun, right? That's Jen's quote. Like, that's the way it is. And you can't think that someone that's going to take a bronze challenge is going to want to know all of those. Like, that's not necessarily why they're there. They're there to socialize in the community aspect and to be a part of what we're offering.
And you're introducing new anglers to the sport who are hopefully going to enjoy fly fishing. And, you know, when at that first casting event, Jen was working with me a little bit, and it was fun, and I felt very relaxed. And then a little bit later on in the day, a couple of the older gentlemen came over, and they were like, I was just kind of, casting, just kind of getting the feel for it or whatever, and they were like, okay, you got to do this, and cock your wrist, cast to the side. I'm like, well, wait a second, I don't think I'm supposed to cock my wrist. And then all of a sudden, it totally felt, my best analogy, if anybody out there golfs, it totally felt like golf to me, like, keep your head down, follow through, all these 100 things you got to be thinking about, and then all of a sudden it's super overwhelming and you don't want to do it.
Right.
So I really love to see, I think it was Michael Mori. Is he the one from Germany?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I loved at Stewart how when we all got back in from we were on the Chidim skiffs out there, and we all got back in, and Jen and Heather were there, and Michael was showing them some of his teaching techniques, and I love that you're always students. Some of these people, it seems like they get to the point where they're like, I'm the expert, I don't have anything to learn, I'm not gonna, but they're shooting themselves in the foot,
Great.
And, for instance, the person that we were out with, we were talking about that was kind of a little overbearing. One of the things he kept bringing up was how he feels like he wishes all the fly anglers, the instructors, would teach people not to rock back and forth or move their body when casting, because he then feels like he has to reteach everybody that he guides, because they shouldn't be doing that.
I didn't realize that you were. Yeah, I didn't realize you were on the boat with the only expert caster in the world. Wow, what a privilege you had. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to reteach everybody, and I think that's the wrong attitude, like the right intention with the wrong attitude.
Right.
Yeah.
I get he's, wanting people to have success.
Well, and I had never cast, I have cast in a skiff like that, but it's certainly not something I do every day. And again, even he was overbearing, but I was up on the front platform or at the front of the skiff, and as I would cast, I was shifting my weight back and forth. So I literally was rocking the boat, so he did have to tell me, put all your weight on your left foot and keep it there, but it wasn't something I was used to.
Well, and I think the other thing too, from us fishing all over the world, that there's all different types of fishing.
Exactly.
There's saltwater fishing from a skiff. There's sneaking up on ginormous brown trout in New Zealand. There's swinging for 30-plus inch rainbows in Alaska.
Yep.
There is, there's so many different types of fishing, and it's okay sometimes to rock your body, right? It's not, when you come into a saltwater world, yes, that could potentially cause some wakes, that could maybe cause some noise, that could maybe spook the fish, but there's so much other type of fishing all over the world that it's not just
Right.
that,
Yep.
so, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was specific for that type of fishing. Absolutely. Yep.
I think you gotta do what feels comfortable and enjoyable to you.
Right. I mean, my casting stroke, it's funny, my photographer, people that know me, they always say, oh, yep, that's a Jen Ripple cast, because my cast is more open. I'm used to casting, really strong double hulls and wind and casting a long distance. And so, I do that even then, because it's muscle memory, I do that even when I'm not fishing in really windy conditions, and that's just my casting stroke, right or wrong, whatever. It is what it is. That's what works for me. And it's okay. That's okay.
Yep. Well,
And I think too, this is not bashing. This isn't. I think for listeners, this isn't bashing on people that are instructors or that are very accomplished and are experts. I think more what this is self-awareness of knowing how to approach a new caster and a new angler, and knowing not to to limit your verbiage, just to one thing at a time. Don't overwhelm somebody, and make it applicable to them. Make it fun. Be open. Be warm. And just how to approach a new caster, I think, is this isn't like bashing on those that are very accomplished, because some of those casters have put a lot of work into these certifications that they've received. So,
and in their defense, there is a challenge when you're a guide and you only have a few hours with somebody, and you really want them to have success and catch a fish. So I'm sure they feel a certain amount of pressure for the person that, is on the boat trying to catch a fish. They want them to do what they need to do to make that happen.
Right.
So I get
absolutely. I think it's just, Jen and I are so used to we have a lot of new people that want to be a part of it and want to be a part of this incredible community that we are all developing and creating. So.
All right, I hope you enjoyed our conversation and got something out of it. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to make a positive impact in fishing. Check out the little bonus episode we released today as well. Also recorded in the minivan, you'll get to meet some of the amazing ladies who joined us along the journey. This is when we were headed from Stuart, Florida to Tampa, sadly dropping some of them off at the airport. You'll get to meet Linda Leary from Fishyware, Jessica Haydall, who's an amazing photographer and videographer, and Jackie Kutzer from Orvis, whom we had on the show previously, way back on episode 27. It was awesome to finally meet Jackie in person. And you'll hear more from Jen Ripple and Heather Hodson, as well as Heather's sweet mom, Carol. We hope to have some of these ladies back on the show for more further in-depth conversations with them, but be a little fly on the wall on our Redfish Roadie road trip and check out that little bonus episode. Thanks for listening, everyone.